I thought I had bought peace. I thought I had finally closed the book on 45 years of fighting in boardrooms, only to realize a single afternoon by my brand new pool would turn into the ugliest battle of my life. My dream retirement crumbled the moment a stranger strolled across my patio, looked me dead in the eye, and told me I was the hired help. And by the time I hung up with 911, I knew this wasn't about a pool, it was war. I had just moved into Lakeview Estates, the kind of neighborhood that sells itself on manicured lawns, a private lake, and a homeowners association that promised community harmony. I thought I'd earned it. After decades of clawing through Wall Street building a company from scratch, I finally bought the house I wanted, modern, spacious, with a saltwater infinity pool glistening in the back. It was supposed to be my sanctuary, my fortress of solitude. That lasted all of 3 weeks. She appeared out of nowhere, blonde dye-job tennis skirt, visor tilted like a crown, a yapping Yorkie in her arms, and without hesitation told me the pool wasn't for staff. I almost laughed, thinking she had the wrong address. But the way she looked around at the patio, the grill, the lawn that sloped into the lake, then back at me with a face like she'd bitten a lemon, I knew exactly what she meant. I told her plainly this was my house. She didn't blink. That's unlikely, she said. The Whitmans lived here for 20 years. They wouldn't sell their home to just anyone. There it was, that familiar pause. The same one I'd heard in boardrooms where I was the only black man at the table. The same venom wrapped in civility. She announced herself as treasurer of the HOA as if that gave her jurisdiction over my backyard, and demanded to see the real owner. That was my cue to drop the smile. I set my iced tea down and told her flat out she was trespassing. Her gasp, clutching that wheezing dog, was almost comical. She stormed off with a promise, "You'll be hearing from us." I knew then this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was the opening shot. For a week, I lived under that invisible cloud. Neighbors peeked at me like I was some exotic animal. Cars slowed as they passed drivers staring just long enough to make their point. I kept my head down, unpacked boxes, tried to ignore the whispers. I told myself I was done fighting battles like that, but then came Saturday. It was hot, perfect pool weather. My 2 grandkids were over splashing and laughing, the kind of carefree sound that makes a house finally feel like home. I was flipping burgers when I saw them 2 teenage boys cutting through the hedge towels over their shoulders, pool noodles in hand. And behind them, like a general leading troops, was her. Carrie, sun hat. Husband in tow, 2 more kids dragging a cooler and a massive inflatable unicorn. They didn't knock. They didn't even acknowledge me. They marched in, set up chairs, and cannonballed into my pool like it was their birthright. I walked over, heart pounding. Voice cold. "This is private property," I said. She smiled, that fake smile, and chirped about community traditions, how the Whitmans always let the neighborhood kids swim. My grandkids had stopped playing, retreating to the steps, wide-eyed. That was it. "Get out," I said, pointing to the hedge. Her husband mumbled, ready to leave, but she planted her feet. "We're not going anywhere. This pool has always belonged to the neighborhood." I pulled out my phone. Fine, you had your chance, and right there in front of her kids, my grandkids, and the entire circus, I dialed 911. The silence that fell over the water was absolute. Her face twisted, rage boiling over. "You'll regret this," she hissed, jabbing her finger at me. "Do you know who I am?" "My brother-in-law is a city councilman. I'll have your job." I almost laughed. I was retired. By the time the cops arrived, she had staged her performance standing waist-deep in my pool, arms crossed, shrieking about being threatened. The young officer's hand hovered near his gun, torn between a sobbing white woman and a calm black man in slacks and a blazer. But Officer Williams, older, steady, took it all in the kids' toys scattered on my chairs, the abandoned unicorn me standing dry and collected. "Sir, your name?" he asked. "John Miller. And this is my home." Carrie flailed, screamed it was the community pool. Williams wasn't having it. "Ma'am, step out of the pool, or I will arrest you for trespassing." Watching her face drain of color as reality sank in, it was almost satisfying. Almost. She finally climbed out, dripping and humiliated. I had it all on camera. I thought maybe maybe that would be the end. I was wrong. The letters started the next week. Thin, white envelopes with the HOA logo. First, my grass was 1/4 of an inch too high, $50 fine. Then, my security cameras were unapproved exterior modifications with $200 fine and a demand to remove them. Then, a photo of my garbage cans left visible for 12 hours after pickup, another fine. Each one pettier than the last, each one signed by Carrie. She couldn't beat me with police, so she would bleed me with paper cuts. I stacked every letter in a file. I scanned every page, saved every photo. I didn't pay a dime. And then, one night, digging through public records, I found it the HOA's landscaping contract, signed with a company owned by Carrie's brother-in-law. Double the market rate. The paving contract and LLC registered to her address. It wasn't just harassment. It was corruption. Still, I felt the weight. I'd wake up dreading the mailbox. I'd look at the stack of violation notices and think maybe I'd made a mistake moving here. Maybe I should just sell the place, cut my losses, and walk away. I was tired. I was retired. Did I really want to spend my golden years fighting another war? For a moment, I believed her poison. Maybe I didn't belong here. But then, I looked at my grandkids' faces in that pool, scared when her kids splashed them like intruders in their own grandfather's home, and I snapped out of it. No, I wasn't walking away. I wasn't letting some petty tyrant rewrite the rules of my life. Not again. So I went door to door. Quiet conversations in driveways, hushed admissions from neighbors who'd all felt her sting. A single mother fined for her kid's bike left on the lawn. An elderly man threatened with a lien over a brown patch of grass in a drought. Everyone had a story. Everyone was afraid. But anger is contagious. I lit the match. We gathered signatures enough to force a special meeting of the entire HOA. The night of the meeting, the clubhouse was packed wall to wall with homeowners. Carrie sat at the front in a navy blazer, gavel in hand, rattling off accusations that I was a liar, a menace. When she asked if there were questions, Sarah Young Mom from across the street stood and asked why landscaping fees were up 20%, while the grass still looked like hell. "Is it true the company is owned by your brother-in-law?" she pressed. The room erupted. Carrie's face went crimson. She banged the gavel, shouting, "Order!" That's when I stood. Calm, steady, holding the bylaws in my hand. "Prove it," I said. "Show us the books. Show us the bids. Show us where you disclosed your conflicts." She had nothing. The silence was deafening. I raised the petition, read aloud, our motion of no confidence. Tom Sarah's husband seconded it. The vote was overwhelming. 90% raised their hands. Carrie slammed the gavel down one last time, then stormed out to a chorus of jeers. The Queen had been deposed. I should have felt relief. Instead, 2 weeks later, my cameras caught her husband creeping into my yard at midnight, crowbar raised over my pool equipment. My blood went cold. But I was ready. Floodlights snapped on my recorded voice, boomed through the speakers. "Wave to the cameras, Gary. I see you." He froze, dropped the crowbar, and stumbled back through the hedge like a burglar in a cartoon. That footage, combined with the letters, the contracts, the pool invasion, it was all I needed. I handed everything to the district attorney: trespassing, slander, harassment, attempted vandalism. Even financial crimes under RICO. When the indictments came down, Carrie's reign ended not with a gavel, but with handcuffs. The woman who called me the hired help, who turned a community into her personal kingdom, was sentenced to 18 months behind bars. And as I watched her being led away, dripping arrogance finally stripped bare, I realized something bullies thrive when people stay quiet. The moment you stand, the moment you refuse to bow, they fall.